Corporate Karma Case Files. Confidential, unfiltered, corporate.
Today's critique focuses on the script for Corporate Karma, The Great Divide of the AI Era, a fast-paced documentary-style video exploring how artificial intelligence is permanently splitting the modern corporate workforce into two camps.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating piece of work.
It totally is. And it's highly engaging. I mean, it perfectly captures the corporate zeitgeist right now, especially with those relatable region-specific touches like the Naukri job board reference for the Indian market.
Right. That was a great touch.
So let's jump right into the structure here. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the workplace has fundamentally transformed, and the narrative really needs to seamlessly guide the viewer through that.
Exactly. You have to guide them from, recognizing that shift to actively surviving it.
Right, and looking at the distinct acts of the script, we've got parts 1 through 3, which they run on this really fantastic, nostalgic, almost comedic exhaust of the before AI era.
Yeah, that fast-paced humor.
But then, without much warning, we just hit part 4, the uncomfortable truths. And moving straight from those rapid-fire comedic before and after comparisons into heavy career existentialism, well, it feels a bit like watching a stand-up comedy special that suddenly pivots into a sobering documentary on climate change.
Is the connection between the comedic nostalgia of the early sections and the heavy career existentialism fully established in the material, or is that an area to potentially bolster?
I feel like it definitely needs some bolstering, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The shift from the nostalgic, fast-paced humor of the early segments to the sobering professional advice later on risks feeling jarring without a stronger narrative connective tissue.
Jarring is the perfect word for it. It's just the hard cut.
It is. The weakness here is moving directly from the snappy, somewhat cynical comparisons in part 3,
where AI generates those emails in like 4 seconds.
Right, exactly. Moving from that directly into the heavy, uncomfortable truths in part 4 creates this intense tonal whiplash. The transition lacks a logical bridge that actually shows how that adaptation felt for the mid-level managers.
Because they're the ones suddenly realizing their pure process roles are shrinking.
Precisely. You have this massive abstract concept the moment everything changed, but it's floating in a vacuum.
So how do we fix that? Because we don't want to lose the momentum, right?
Well, the suggestion here is to smooth this transition by grounding that abstract bridge into part 4 with a brief, continuous micro-narrative of a specific employee's realization.
Oh, interesting. So serving as like a stepping stone between the humor and the gravity.
Yes. Instead of just conceptually listing the dismissers, the panickers, and the adapters, briefly follow a specific hypothetical mid-level manager.
What would that look like in the script?
So, for a concrete example, show this manager laughing at ChatGPT in, say, November 2022. It's a novelty. But then fast forward to March 2023 and show them realizing their process maintenance job, like reformatting those 40-slide decks, is just evaporating.
Ah, I see. So that bridges the comedic Naukri resume updates directly to the sobering reality of the job transformation.
Exactly. You take the viewer by the hand and let them discover the uncomfortable truth organically alongside the character.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But building directly on that tonal whiplash you just mentioned, let's talk about how this structural shift affects the pacing and the emotional resonance.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Because I actually want to push back a little bit here.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Well, you were talking about the cynicism, right? But doesn't that harsh truth-telling, calling out middle management as just pure process management, doesn't that actually build credibility with a skeptical corporate audience who appreciates straight chalk?
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of an anxious mid-level manager in a highly competitive market like India?
Okay, I'm tracking.
The pacing and emotional tone in the middle segments occasionally leans so heavily into cynicism that it threatens to alienate the very busy corporate professionals it ultimately aims to empower.
Wait, really? You think it alienates them rather than waking them up?
I do. The weakness is that in part 4, Uncomfortable Truths, the script's pacing dramatically slows down to deliver these really heavy hits.
Like the widening productivity gap and the exposure of fake skilled work?
Right. And for a skeptical mid-level manager, especially in a fiercely competitive market, This prolonged focus on the negative triggers serious defensiveness.
Oh, I see. So they just shut down.
Exactly. And when that happens, it causes the script to lose forward momentum. It dilutes the proactive mindset that you absolutely require for the ending to land.
Because they're just sitting there feeling attacked instead of feeling inspired to change.
You hit the nail on the head. So my suggestion is to recalibrate that emotional tone by injecting earlier hints of the human differentiator directly into those cynical sections.
So you don't wait until the very end to give them hope?
Right. You ensure the pacing remains brisk, and you balance the truth bombs with immediate actionable hope.
Can you give me a concrete example of how to weave that in? Because we still need to establish that 10x productivity gap, right?
Absolutely. When outlining uncomfortable truth number 2, which is that 5x to 10x productivity gap, don't let the thought end on the heavy note of rethinking what a team even looks like.
That is a pretty ominous place to pause.
It really is. So instead, add a fast, uplifting beat showing what that 10x employee actually did with their saved time.
Oh, so point out that the adapter didn't just go home early.
Exactly. Show that they used those extra 5 hours to navigate tricky office politics or to build deep client trust.
Which seeds the motivational payoff of part 5 much earlier, so the audience doesn't just, linger in anxiety.
Exactly. You're reframing AI from being a job stealer to a time creator.
I love that. And that links directly to the need for an empowering tone in the script's final act, right?
Totally.
Because if the goal is to drive the audience toward proactive behavior in part 5, what this means for you, then that final advice needs to be absolutely bulletproof.
It has to be actionable.
Right. And the script has this great metaphor about an impressive-looking house built on sand if your fundamentals are weak.
It's a strong visual.
It is. And I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. Because while the motivational close sounds great, the sand versus rock concept needs to be more tangibly defined for the listener.
That makes sense. But could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like the audience needing a much more specific, grounded scenario to actually change their behavior?
Yeah, I think they probably do.
While the final call to action successfully motivates the audience, the specific value proposition for a mid-level manager trying to survive this shift remains slightly abstract and needs sharper grounding.
Because caring and building trust are incredibly hard to quantify on a resume.
Precisely. That's the weakness here. Part 5 correctly identifies that human judgment and building trust are the ultimate differentiators, but these are very high-level concepts.
Yeah, for a deeply skeptical corporate professional, the language is inspiring, but it kind of lacks that sharp, proactive utility, right?
Right. It lacks the show, don't tell sharpness that we saw earlier in the script's tech comparisons. Earlier, we gave them exact times and tasks.
Like the 4 seconds to draft an email.
Exactly. So my suggestion is to ground the concluding motivational advice in a highly recognizable, high-stakes corporate scenario.
Something that actively demonstrates the difference between pure AI output and human-augmented value.
Yes. We need to define what being right when it matters actually looks like on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, I definitely need a concrete example for this one.
Sure. So, for example, the script can show that AI can draft a flawless project delay email in seconds. Perfectly polite, impeccably researched.
But it's just processing information.
Exactly. But only you, using your human judgment, know that sending that email at 4 p.m. on a Friday to an anxious client will cause an absolute panic over the weekend.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the AI doesn't know the client's boss is on vacation or that they're stressed.
Right. So you hold the AI-generated email. You wait, you call the client Monday morning, and you use the AI's synthesized data to calmly negotiate a timeline extension.
That is brilliant. It transforms a motivational platitude into a concrete survival tactic.
It grounds the entire abstract concept of human judgment into a recognizable, high-stakes corporate reality.
It's perfect. Well, this has been an incredibly illuminating breakdown.
It's a really great script to work with.
It really is. So, to quickly recap our 3 high-level, actionable takeaways. First, smooth the transition from comedic nostalgia to serious advice using a continuous micro-narrative.
Let the audience cross the bridge with a proxy character.
Exactly. Second, balance that heavy cynicism with early glimpses of the human differentiator to maintain momentum.
Don't let them freeze up in anxiety.
Right.
And third, ground those final abstract motivational concepts into highly specific, high-stakes corporate scenarios.
Like the Friday afternoon email.
Exactly.
Well, we want to thank the listeners so much for submitting this highly engaging script. We warmly invite you to submit your revised work or any future materials back in for another critique. Until next time.
Like, comment, subscribe. The next case file opens soon.